Right then, let's go.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the 2-on-1 Powerchair Football Podcast, powered by MK Battery for the 24-25 season. MK Battery isn't just a supplier, they're a vital partner to Powerchair Football by providing top quality batteries essential for our sport. They ensure players have the reliable power needed to compete at all levels. Their commitment extends beyond just equipment. MK Battery actively engages in community initiatives and supports the growth of our sport, making it more accessible and sustainable for everyone involved. My name is Ryan Sipple, and alongside me today, I'm delighted to be joined by Dean Williams, chairperson of the Wheelchair Football Association. How are you, Dean? And how was your Christmas?
I'm very good, Ryan. How are you doing? You okay?
I'm very well, thank you.
My Christmas was very special. I spent a little bit of time with the family and then lots of stuff when I eventually got myself back to Lincolnshire. Lots of nice walks and far too much to eat and a little bit to drink as well. But I have a mince pie in hand as we sit here on New Year's Eve. What a lovely thing to do on New Year's Eve.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of the same for me. Lots of food, lots of drink. I've been thrusted back into the swing of things a lot quicker than I was anticipating, having coached at the FA Regional Emergent Talent Programme on Sunday alongside Alex Dowding. So I'm ready to kick things off. I'm ready for 2025 and all the exciting developments we have in store. As we approach the year's end today, we have a special episode. Dean and I have each selected some of our standout moments from the 2024 Powerchair football season. We'll alternate sharing these moments in no particular order, discuss the stories, the emotions, and the significance behind each highlight. And as we recap these standout memories from last year, we may also look forward to 2025, which will be a really significant year, most notably because the Wheelchair Football Association will be proudly celebrating its 20th anniversary, for which we have many exciting plans. And whilst we celebrate these incredible achievements, events and news from 2024, it's also really important to take a moment to remember those who are sadly no longer with us. Their contributions and their presence have left a lasting impression, and while we reflect on the past year's highlights, we also want to honour their memory and the impact they've had on the lives of our community. So let's kick things off. Dean, would you do me the pleasure of letting our listeners know one of your top highlights of 2024?
Well, first and foremost, Ryan, what a tough ask this was. This was extremely difficult. I quite enjoyed the process of racking my brains. I would call this quite a cathartic process to go through and then reflect on all the things that happened and some significant highlights, as you've already mentioned, during the year. But it wasn't an easy task at all. So I'm just going to add that in straight away and say I've probably taken artistic license to combine a number of things into my top 5 that you will probably sit there and some of our listeners will as well and say that's not really 5, is it, Dean? But I couldn't do it any other way. There's some honourable mentions that I just wanted to make sure get across as well. But I have got a starting point here, and I've probably got to chronology to this as well. So if I take myself right the way back to the start of the year, 2024, my first full year, it means there's a lot of firsts that have happened. So that will dominate my list of my 5 with that artistic license that I've just mentioned. But the first one I want to talk about is the medium-term strategy. And I can imagine some of the community and listeners are thinking, Dean, that's a very strange first pick. It's not necessarily football related, but for me, in terms of leadership involved in football administration and my responsibilities alongside other trustees and the leadership team to govern and grow the association, it's a hugely significant thing to have done at the start of last year, or the year we're still in at the moment, just a day out, aren't we? So if I think about that as a process that started towards the back end of 2023, I was appointed on the 1st of August 2023, so my initial process of going through and observing and understanding where the association was, the quality, the things that we do well, but also the things that I recognise that we could do even better in terms of our performance and and what we're providing for our wonderful athletes and our community in general. So that started in 2023, but that's a lot of work, right? So you don't create a strategy, and our medium-term strategy, you don't create that on your own. That's not a job of Dean in this case. It isn't a job of just a chairperson. That's getting an awful lot of people to give you their thoughts and their insight around how we do as an association right now, what are we actually providing, but also the gaps that they recognise. But one really important thing for me was, how do we dare to dream? And to enable everyone to do that and me to sit and listen to everyone's contributions, that's a huge piece of work which kept me busy for a long period of time. And then credit where credit's due, and cutting to the chase slightly, when we got together as trustees and thrashed out our Dare to Dream piece, what do we want, what does the community want, what are they looking for, what's the natural progression and involvement for us as a football association. When I spoke to all those stakeholders, it was then for me and Adam McAvoy to sit down and take all of the flip charts and the information and the post-it notes that we had and try and make sense of that and put that into a strategy document. That in itself is not an easy thing to do. I think Adam might, hopefully would remember this fondly, but we probably had a best part of about 4 days together, just in hotels and meeting venues, just thrashing round what have we heard and where's the alignment and how do we condense this into something that's very manageable, that really pushes us as an association. Huge piece of work. And what we've ended up creating, I think, and hopefully a lot of people have taken an interest and read through this as well, is a very compelling document, but also a change of language. And that language is quite important. So I started stopping people talking in years and related it to seasons. It's how we work, isn't it? It's our product from a football perspective. So we have a 3-season medium-term strategy, which I think, I'm bound to be a little bit biased alongside the other trustees and the rest of my leadership team, but it's very clear what we're trying to achieve and what we're looking to garner in terms of support, but also what we want Powerchair football to look like at the end of that 3rd season. The start of this season was when all that kicked into shape. So effectively it's a 3-season plan that started from the 24-25 season that we're now into. So for me, that was a huge piece of work, because you can't lead anything without direction, and you can't lead anything without anybody, with a number of people and clear stakeholders sitting there and going, actually, this is what we want. So for me, it's not about what my vision was. The early days, I think a couple of people dropped into language of no negative intent to say it's Dean's strategy. It's not my strategy. It's a strategy that's been adopted throughout the association, and we've made a tremendous start on it, but there's a lot of stuff that really pushes on there. And by having it over 3 seasons, there's no hiding place, right, Ryan? So there's a strong piece of accountability that comes with that the community rightly should look at us as trustees and leadership team and say, look, this is what you said, and where are we with this? We're up for that kind of challenge. So it's a very ambitious strategy. We've started really well. But that's a significant thing for me, because without it, what are we doing? We've all got perfect intention, but we're potentially in danger of trying to do things that we think are really meaningful and helpful and useful with no clear association or direction or connection with what we're trying to achieve. So that was significant. It's a bit boring for a lot of people, I guess, but for me, it's a very exciting piece of work.
And I think you're absolutely right to highlight that. And certainly speaking as a member of staff for the Wheelchair Football Association, it was so nice to see kind of the conceptualization all the way through to the rollout of the medium-term strategy. And just for those that don't necessarily know its aim, its objective, it's a document that details the Wheelchair Football Association's key goals and aspirations for the next 3 seasons. Everything from promoting inclusivity to improving safeguarding and developing further relationships. And what's been really nice, remind me what month this was rolled out officially? So
it was right at the end of the first quarter of 2024. So right at the back end of March, maybe slipping into the start of April. But the whole point was getting it done so we could start to socialise it and get things lined up for the start of the 24-25 season.
So the reason I ask that is the fact that you're already seeing the success of the strategy come to life in way of improved partnership. We've obviously secured Optegra as the National League sponsors for both the Premiership and the Championship for the 24-25 season. We'll of course come on to the quality of football and the level of exposure that provides, but that's kind of stemmed from this document, as well as the extended partnership with the John Good Group. We had such a fantastic 23-24 with them as our WFA Cup sponsors, that I think this document and what it details and its hopes and its aspirations have been really appealing for corporate sponsors, as well as obviously the Powerchair football community. Added to that, UA92, MK Battery, just to mention just two. That is success from the medium-term strategy. So whilst you say it may be a bit boring, it's so important to the way that we operate. Certainly as one of two members of staff, it's kind of our holy grail now, our Bible that we work towards every single day. So important to mention it.
Nice words, Ryan.
So I suppose I'll go on to my one of my 5 highlights of 2024 now. And when you're recapping the most significant historic moments of 2024, I think you will be hard-pressed to find a better answer than Aspire's monumental achievement in Paris, becoming the first ever English team in history to win the EPFA Champions Cup. For those that don't know, the EPFA Champions Cup is the Champions League equivalent for Powerchair football. And they, alongside West Bromwich Albion, were two English representatives that travelled to France in a bid to become European champions, and they were successful in doing so. Sadly, I wasn't there to witness it in person, but the sensational streaming, paired with the live match commentary, most notably from Charlie McClellan, just made such a huge difference to the viewing experience at home. And I felt part of the journey. Every kick, every goal, it was just incredible. And to see an English team lift that trophy was such a proud moment for me, even though I wasn't directly involved or present. So I have to say that is one of my top moments of 2024. I don't think the achievement gets the credit it deserves. John Balding and co adding yet another impressive accolade to their names is no less than they deserve. And especially after a challenging 2023-24 season where they sadly faltered in their pursuit of a second successive Premiership trophy, the then PTC Therapeutics Premiership, where they were pipped to the post on the last weekend to West Bromwich Albion. Likewise in the John Good Group WFA Cup final at St George's Park, they fell short to West Bromwich Albion again. So they had it all to prove, and they defied all the odds to lift that trophy. And what an achievement.
It was an incredible achievement. I will not mention the client, but I actually cancelled a client meeting just to watch the streaming of the final. That's how into that I was. You'd expect me to say that, but genuinely that was the case. So again, I wasn't there myself, Ryan. I mean, I was sorely tempted and couldn't get that to work my end to get over there for the latter stages of that. But as you've said, what an incredible achievement to do that. I love my firsts and I love my history and achieving history. And I think I can take no credit for any of this, of course, but the fact that an English club has got over there and won it for the first time, that is just an awesome achievement. What an incredible thing for them to have achieved. And just before you said that, I was just going to mention the same thing, that the disappointment of West Bromwich Albion winning the double for Aspire, but still to carry over and show that resilience and achieve something substantial as that going into the season, that's just remarkable. Going into it on the back of a season like that was a remarkable achievement. So, no, they deserve a lot of credit for that. What a moment that was.
Yeah, naturally, I think a lot of our attention and praise will be towards Aspire having lifted that trophy. But I think it's really important to acknowledge the role that West Bromwich Albion played in that journey, they're such fierce rivals and have been so for so many years. It's almost, and I don't want to speak on behalf of anyone from Aspire or West Brom, but it's almost been a singular objective to better one another in seasons gone by. And I truly believe that competition between the two has contributed to the standards of football we're seeing in England now. So whilst Paris for me was historic for the fact that Aspire were crowned champions, it was also this incredible showcase of English Powerchair football specifically, and that stems from the works they do at national leagues, in the WFA Cup competitions and the regional leagues, and they pushed one another to compete at the very pinnacle of Powerchair football. For those that don't know, we've got a Club World Cup coming up in 2025 where Aspire will be looking to add to that accolade, but all of the success you're seeing at the top is a result of the hard work and the competition you're seeing at domestic level. So I think it's really important to reference and praise West Brom for the role that they played in pushing and propping up Aspire, and we'll no doubt get on to the quality of football that we're seeing in the 24-25 season throughout the episode. But that is now the case for so many teams. It's no longer a 2 or 3 horse race. The 24-25 Optegra Premiership has 4, potentially 5 potential winners, and that will have huge impacts on the football that they play away from the national leagues, whether that's in club competitions across Europe or the world, or even at international level when we're looking to defend our crown in the EPFA Nations Cup set to take place in September. So it's amazing, and it all stems from the work that we do at the Powerchair Football Association, so one that I'm really proud of.
No, well said, Ryan. I think that that competitive element and that push to increase the performance levels of individuals. People often talk about that from inside a club, don't they? Having strength across a squad that enables you to push and all push for a starting berth. That's a really good thing, difficult thing for a coach and a manager to deal with. But of course, it's where you see a lot of any walks of the game. You see a lot of teams of quality have that about them as a squad. The other side of that is exactly what you've just brilliantly mentioned, which is the push from other teams that really are making people drive their performance to a different level. So there's no question that's the case.
Okay, so we both started the podcast with key highlights from 2024. We've both selected 5 each, so 10 in total, with a few honourable mentions weaved in for good measure. So that allows me to ask Dean what your second highlight of 2024 was.
So this, again, following that order of events, just an incredible first experience for me as chairperson of the Wheelchair Football Association, to be part of the FA Disability Cup at St George's Park. That was just an absolutely incredible way to spend 2 days, and I was fortunate enough to be there for the whole 2 days and watched every single final, so 6 finals, including ours on the Sunday, which I'll get to obviously. But just to watch the other para football disciplines as part of that event, I found that was an incredible. It was my wife's birthday as well on the Sunday, so of course you've met Ros, and many people who have met Ros. She's a wonderful person and very forgiving on these kind of things, and she enjoyed it just as much as I did. So for that to be a first, that was a wonderful experience. I'm already looking forward to whenever that date is set for 2025 as well. So if I just go back a step from that, I'll talk about the day itself and the way that we represented ourselves from a Powerchair football perspective in a few moments. But for those people that don't know, it's our, as we call it, a John Good Group WFA Cup final. That was the final that we held in Powerchair football as part of the FA Disability Cup. So if I just go back a step and nod towards wonderful sponsors in John Good Group, they have been, you've mentioned them once already, Ryan, they've been amazing with us, and you will have seen that firsthand because we work very closely with them. So again, Adam Walsh is the CEO of the organisation. He doesn't like me just singling him out because his team are just absolutely fantastic. But, you know, Adam and I go back a long, long way. But what he has seen and what he has helped us achieve already as part of that prestigious cup tournament is just fantastic. And the starting point of that, before we even got to St George's Park, of course, was for the first time we ran the John Good Group WFA Cup quarter-final and semi-final day over at Derby Arena. And I thought that was incredible, just to pick and use a very different venue in the shape of a velodrome and try a few things out ourselves, but really push ourselves in terms of the quality of the event that we were putting on. And at that stage, I hadn't even got used to St George's Park at all. But I was blown away by that quarter-final and semi-final. So we ended up, of course, with two teams that we've mentioned a few times already, fighting it out once again as part of the FA Disability Cup, John Good Group WFA Cup final at St George's Park, West Brom and Aspire. I think the whole bit for me in terms of the community side of looking at that final, the community were absolutely incredible. I think we nearly sold that out, didn't we? If not, there was one or two spaces. I didn't see any more than that, but the noise was just incredible. So the wonderful community that we have that has a competitive element to it, but still comes together. You know, they experience things together. You talked about people that we've lost, and I'm always impressed with the way our community comes together at the most difficult, dark times within our sport. But even though you've got two big rivals in terms of sets of fans and families, the noise that they conjured up with the bespoke t-shirts and also I remember the drum as well, it was brilliant to be part of that crowd. But also when I looked at back on TNT Sports, I mean, it just translated brilliantly. What a spectacle it was. And that's our community that does that. The game itself, they're always tense, they're always tight, aren't they? So I thought West Brom on the day deserved to win that final. I don't think Aspire would not want me to say that. They were very polite and courteous, as much as you can be when you've lost a final like that. But West Brom deserved the credit. But for me personally, it was a first of mine and therefore a highlight because of the things that I was asked to do. So what an honour to actually be involved in the presentation team at St George's Park to give the medal. And I awarded myself the Player of the Match award to Chris Gordon. And then I was joined by Adam Walsh and a number of other colleagues as well, but Adam got the honour, the absolute honour of giving the trophy, awarding the trophy to Chris Gordon and the West Brom Albion players as well. So, I mean, I remember talking to Adam about this, and if anyone has seen or listened to our podcast that was done recently via here, they'll perhaps note Adam saying something I think was very poignant, and saying that when he turned up to that as part of the presentation team, he was very, very nervous. I was nervous too. And he said the thing that he had to remind himself of was this is not about you, Adam, at all. This is about the players. And it was my first, and I was really nervous. I think it was Owen Swift that said to me, Dean, you look nervous, but you did a really good job. And I said to Owen afterwards, I was really nervous. And that's nothing to do with the TV cameras, by the way. That's to do with the fact that you think, this is a really responsible thing to do. You know, this is our prestigious cup tournament, and this 100% is something that you want to make sure you get it right. You certainly don't want to be making any mistakes or anything like that. So the nerves and the adrenaline kind of kick in from a leadership perspective, and you think, I want this to go really, really well. And then as soon as you start to go through that, you relax a little bit, and then you kind of join in with the community in terms of those celebrations as well. So as a first experience, Ryan, that was just unbelievable from a personal perspective. And you know, I went into that thinking about how does this translate in terms of us having a final amongst other finals with para football disciplines. I thought the whole event was handled beautifully by the FA, who deserve an awful lot of credit for the spectacle they put on. So it's definitely one of my highlights from last year.
It's without question one of the top highlights of 2024. You said that the FA kind of deserved credit. They've evolved this FA Disability Cup weekend into this unparalleled, unmatched celebration, showcase of disability football at the highest level. And it is one of the first dates in the calendar I look forward to for the new year. So when 2025 comes around, that will be one of the first things I pencil in, because it is just incredible. The atmosphere around St George's Park is unlike anything I've ever experienced in any kind of professional football running game equivalent, because it's just this amazing celebration, this coming together of elite athletes in the para formats. And you've already spoken about the quality of football and everything that comes with it, from the fans and the drums to the celebration and the TNT Sports streaming and broadcast of the whole event. The FA have just made this amazing celebration now, and I cannot wait to see what they do with it in 2025. As one point, we run many different disability football sessions in conjunction with the finals that take place. So I was present at St George's Park delivering a Powerchair Football taster session for potential new players or partners, to get them into the chairs, to introduce them to the sport, because we know that's how we can get people really in tune with what Powerchair football is, and how they can gain that appreciation is by trying it out. So that as a day, fantastic. You mentioned Derby and us having the quarters and semi-final. That in itself was one of the best WFA-led delivered events I think there's ever been. We're obviously we have a fantastic relationship with Nottingham Trent University, where we deliver our National League. But this was just a different level. Derby Arena, so fantastic for the services they provide, for the space, you've mentioned the velodrome, but it allowed us to put spectator seating around the courts. We introduced silent disco headsets so people could tune into the live match commentary, and that was without much notice or planning. We know we've had many meetings with John Good Group since, and they have the bit between their teeth to improve upon what was an incredibly successful 23-24 season, and we've obviously extended that partnership for the next 2 seasons as well. So the reason why I love John Good Group so much is they've just taken to Powerchair football like no other organisation I've ever come across. They're now shouting about it on their own platforms and their own podcasts as highlights for their year. You sent me a clip last week where they had a podcast recapping highlights of their 2024, and they mentioned Powerchair football and the relationship with the WFA and the sponsorship of the WFA Cup as one of their most significant, prominent achievements of 2024. And that speaks to the impression that we've put upon them, and now they want to help us create this incredible cup competition and take Powerchair football to new heights. So yeah, full credit to John Good Group, Adam Walsh and the team.
I was just one final point on that, Ryan. I was very touched. I sent Adam a note because I'd seen it on LinkedIn and therefore forwarded it to you. And I was having a gym session actually. I was on the bike. It's very new for me, this. And I was on the bike and I put on the podcast and I was listening to that, and it made me stop pedaling for a brief moment when Adam Walsh signified that one of the biggest highlights of 2024, as you just referenced, was the involvement and the showcasing of Powerchair football and John Good Group's involvement in that. Just a wonderful, touching thing to hear from Adam. And you can see, can't you, some of the community when they listen to that podcast that I referenced earlier on, where it's just Adam and I talking. A few people came to me after that and said, it's just incredible that somebody has known the sport for such a little amount of time and just totally gets it and understands it to the length and the understanding that Adam carries for the sport. And that, that is just wonderful credit to the guys at John Good, Adam and the guys at John Good Group, in terms of how they've just completely taken it all on board and want to be part of it. They've not stood on the outside. They've come right into the circle, haven't they? Which is brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, real soft spot for John Good Group, and we know that there's so many exciting plans for 2025. that will be released across social media in the coming days and weeks. So I hope you can tune into them. But fantastic achievement of the 2024 calendar.
What's your next one, Ryan?
You mentioned at the top that it was so hard to whittle this down to 5 significant moments, 10 between us, and I had a real long think about it. And at the core, my role at the Wheelchair Football Association as National Development Officer is to develop the sport of powerchair football and introduce powerchair football to new audiences. So for that, in 2024, fairly remarkably, we saw the development and launch of 3 new powerchair football clubs, that being Ipswich, Leicester and Rotherham. These were key focus areas for the 24-25 season, and impressively all 3 got off the ground within just a few months of one another. So it was a lot of work, a lot of collaboration, and it was just this amazing achievement to get them off the ground. All 3 clubs are tied and managed by the foundations of their respective professional clubs, so that really boosts the profile of powerchair football to more mainstream audiences. So a huge thank you to Leicester City and the community, the Ipswich Town Foundation and the Rotherham United Community Trust, because just having these established clubs put their weight behind the sport not only raises its visibility but also helps in attracting new players, volunteers, supporters and sponsors. So that was such a fantastic way to start 2024, that they've been staggered slightly, but all of them are self-sustainable now. They're providing their own training sessions, regular training sessions at that. So it's our obligation now to work closely with these clubs to ensure that they continue to develop and they have the staff and the players, and we can hopefully see them playing competitively within their respective regional leagues, hopefully by the 25-26 season. When referencing Leicester and Rotherham particularly, I want to say a huge thank you to Boost Charitable Trust, who provided the grants needed to launch the clubs via equipment and running costs. I've got a fantastic relationship with Boost Charitable Trust. They funded my role in 2018 and have been a long-standing supporter of Powerchair Football and the Wheelchair Football Association. So a huge shout out to them. And it was just a great year in terms of the development of clubs, and we now need to take that momentum into 2025 as we look to develop more areas of the country that are yet to have powerchair football provision.
It's a great one, isn't it? So again, back to the strategy, govern and grow are the 2 words that are prominent within that strategy. And of course, the grow side of it is exactly what you just mentioned there, which is, we are not doing our jobs as an association, and certainly not living by the strategy, if we are resting with the numbers of players that we currently have. So bringing participation, you've just said that very eloquently, Ryan, to different parts of the country, that's an extremely important thing for us to do. And you won't like me doing this because I've got to know you very well as a character, but the credit you deserve in doing that, you can always square these things off and say, well, that's my role alongside Adam to do that. But I know how difficult it is to get these things off the ground because of what you've chosen to share with me, and latterly a meeting we were in together, and I was blown away by your understanding of the process and how we can help people look at something that clearly they want to achieve and want to get up and running, but actually really help them understand that we can break this down into very manageable steps, and here's what that needs to look like. And there are some clear, what I call showstoppers, that you're able to walk somebody through very, very clearly. And there's no, without being in the meetings involving Ipswich, Leicester and Rotherham, there's no question you would have done the same thing that I saw latterly. with somebody that's shown an interest over the last few weeks or so, you would have done that process with those clubs and those foundations to get them to feel their way through this. So I love the fact that we are able to support and guide, but it's also a thank you to you, Ryan, about the quality of what you do around that. And you know, it's such a big part of our strategy. I remember when I first started, there was some restricted funds that were sitting in the account. When I got my head around, you know, what are those things for? It was for equipment, and clearly then purchasing a load of chairs was the right thing for us to do. And then, long story short, but we're able now to develop a chair loan scheme, which enables clubs, if they need it, to, you know, borrow some chairs and be able to get themselves some kind of help and assistance around putting on Powerchair football before they even start to compete in the regional leagues. These kind of things are incredibly important, and you know, we are not doing constitutionally what we should be doing as a charity if we're not encouraging more participation into the sport. So these kind of things are critical. And back to one of your earlier points as well, Ryan, these in time, not immediately, these all add to the competitive element that comes into our sport and the push that's involved on the players as well. And that, if we feed that upwards, that can only be good news from a national team perspective in terms of going into tournaments with more people coming in, a bigger push towards quality, people having to be even better than what they are right now to develop new skills. I love it. It's such a significant thing, and to have had 3 big foundations and clubs come on board during the course of 2024, that's amazing, and full credit to you as well.
Yeah, I think it's fairly widely acknowledged that you can't have the elite side of the game without the grassroots feeding that continuously. So it's so important, such a paramount importance, that Adam and I work continuously to develop new opportunities and access new players that haven't been exposed to Powerchair football as of yet. So it was just before the Christmas break, Adam and I spent a day together laying out our plans, our intentions for 2025 and beyond, targeting more areas for expansion. So hopefully we can match the fairly unprecedented achievement of 2024 of 2, 3, 4 more clubs in the immediate future. That is, there's no telling what we can do across the entirety of kind of the medium-term strategy's 3 seasons. And of particular note, we can mention it, the exciting developments within the world of club expansion and club creation. We've started and begun promising talks with Tottenham Hotspur's Foundation, one organisation that has expressed an interest to create Powerchair football opportunities. And with us both being diehard Tottenham Hotspur's fans, it was a real pleasure to go to their offices just prior to Christmas, have engaged in real meaningful dialogue with some fantastic people, Mark Leckie, the CEO of the Tottenham Hotspur Foundation, and John Abel, their disability leave, who ended up giving us a fantastic personal tour of the stadium. But I just want to emphasise that conversations are always taking place with prospective areas and clubs and opportunities, and we never want to rest on our laurels in terms of what we've got. The ultimate goal always is to increase, improve and grow Powerchair football.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, Dean, on to your third highlight of 2024.
So again, we're back to my first. So another first for me was in probably about mid-July, wasn't it? So the season had finished. We'd have the FA Disability Cup weekend, which I've talked about already. And then we go into a celebration for us at the WFA and all of the accomplishments and achievements that have happened during the season. So what we call our end of season awards. So for me, the reason I picked that, Ryan, is because I would be mortified if the community don't think that I make myself accessible and get myself involved. But that's a very different experience, because you have in one room, and what a fabulous venue at Leicester City Football Club we had there in terms of the size of that room and everything that went with that, which I'm sure you'll talk about in a few moments as well, because you were front and centre once again of your organisation of the whole event, which again I'm truly grateful for, Ryan. But the actual spectacle of getting such a large number of our community in a room at the same time, to be together, to celebrate the successes, to celebrate those personal accolades, but to share stories that had happened through the season. I just was blown away by that. It's one of those things that when you're in a position of leadership, it's the kind of thing you want to see. You want to get people in a room, and you don't just want to hear and see pats on the back. You want to hear how people have truly felt about the season, etc., and the things that they are looking to perhaps give you advice on that you could improve moving forward. And all of that happened on that evening. So what a brilliant celebration, in as I've mentioned already, in a great venue. It was my first experience, so I've got no idea that Marcus Harrison would turn up slightly late and then scoop up so many awards, but apparently that's not unusual for him to do that. But whether it was Marcus or anyone else that was receiving awards on that day, just wonderful celebration. I think one of the most poignant moments was a very sad moment as well, where I just loved what we'd put together, and yourself and Alex deserve a lot of credit for this as well, when we remembered people that had passed and fallen during the course of that season. I mean, that was a very, very moving moment, and I think a lot of people were struggling through that, but absolutely 100% the right thing for us to do, and the thing that we'd always want to do, to remember them and make sure their legacy stays intact and they'll always be with us. But I had several guests there on the table that I was hosting, and these again were people that were experiencing Powerchair football for the first time. I mean, it was very difficult for them from an emotional perspective, not only to watch things like that, but just be absolutely thrown into that whole evening and just understand collectively what Powerchair football means to so many people. So I love that event. That's one of the best evenings I've ever had, full stop. Forget an association with Powerchair football. I just loved it. I was able to enjoy the evening with my eldest daughter, Kelly, and also my wife, and we just remember that evening so fondly. But the reason we remember the evening is, there's nothing wrong with the food that we ate or anything like that, but it's the people, right? It's the community, it's the people, it's the chance to celebrate, it's the chance to have a bit of fun together, to unwind, to understand each other a little bit better as well, to have conversations with people outside of just talking about Powerchair football responsibilities. Loved it. Loved so much about the evening. And again, I'm talking about the FA Disability Cup. Can't wait for the date in the diary for 2025. Equally, I'm so looking forward to that evening again. And we'll, you know what we're like, Ryan, we'll want to make that even bigger and better than what we did it last year. But just a wonderful moment to be amongst the community. And you know, people that don't know me that well still will know that these kind of things are really important for me. It's not, you know, I want to get involved, I want to do things, I want to be very visible, I want to understand and have a clear understanding around the temperature check that exists within Powerchair football and within that community. So these kind of things are just wonderful ways to do that. And, you know, this is my artistic license, so forgive me, my friend, for doing this. I mentioned this right at the start of the podcast, didn't I, today? I'd take this opportunity. But I think I learned a little bit more about what Powerchair football means to our community on that end of season awards, and everything since then has further strengthened it as well. And this is my artistic license bit. Elliot Tinkler's video as part of her studies and part of her uni course that she put together, what she called it, Powerchair football documentary, for want of a better expression, about 5 minutes long. Wow. I mean, honestly, if anyone's in any doubts around how much Powerchair football means to our athletes, our players and our community, just have a watch of that you'll find on our social feeds, because, again, I found that brilliant to watch, but difficult to watch and listen to because some of the things that were being said. And I love that, you know, people like Chris Gordon and Rosie and also Greg Baxter talking about ultimately their experience of how they got themselves into Powerchair football and what it means to them, and that line, which will become a very used line, I'm sure, for all the right reasons, from Greg at the end, and I'll quote him, "If somebody said there was a cure for what I have, I probably wouldn't take it because I wouldn't be able to play Powerchair football." That just stumped so many people, and you know, we mustn't forget this. You've talked about the growth of corporate sponsors and partners through the course of 2024, which is a very targeted aim from me and the rest of the trustees. But these things register, and they take people close to our sport within minutes and seconds. And that's what we need, right? We need people, if they're going to get involved, we want them to not sit. We've mentioned this about John Good Group and Adam Walsh specifically a few moments ago. We don't want people sitting on the outside. We want people coming in and understanding what it really means, and therefore understanding the impact they're having on whichever way they're deciding to help and support us as an association. And, you know, Elliot Tinkler deserves so much credit for that. It was brilliantly put together. But I love these moments. These moments for me, I love the football, but these moments are equally important where we understand what we're specifically doing. And, you know, sometimes doing a leadership role, I can speak for myself, but also for the other trustees as well. It's not easy. You know, there are a lot of things that consume us and that we have to do. And, you know, it doesn't take much to take me back to centre and remind me what we're doing and why it's so important to the people that we serve. So, no, that's the end of season awards, but with my artistic licence, just the fuller explanation of what it means and developing my understanding of that and my appreciation and empathy with that, that's a huge highlight for me from last year.
Yeah, firstly, on Elliot Tinkler's video, I controlled the launch of it, and I've never seen something move so many people in such a short amount of time. It was this amazing documentary created as part of our university studies, and you've already mentioned that quote from Greg Baxter. Even when you reference it and quote it back, it gives me goosebumps. Listen to it. This is a video that didn't just have an impact in England. I saw it shared across communities in Denmark, in Australia, in America. They all appreciate how beautifully that captured the essence of Powerchair football and the community behind it. And I think I'm probably guilty of being so engrossed in Powerchair football that I don't necessarily consider some of the aspects that were mentioned in terms of the challenges, in terms of the motivations and more. So watching that, and I've done so many times since, I've never seen someone capture the sport so perfectly as she did. So full credit to her. I'm hoping she can do a 2.0. We've got to try and use her skills and her eye for detail to other areas of our work, because it was amazing. So absolutely right. Full credit to Elliot. And then going on to the end of season awards 2024 was amazing. You've already mentioned we moved to the King Power Stadium at Leicester City to host last year's iteration because of the demand and the successes of years gone by, and we had to explore other opportunities to find venues that could host the numbers of people that have expressed an interest of attending, because it is such an amazing event. We've already said how the FA Disability Cup is one of the first things of the Powerchair football calendar that we mark down for the upcoming year. Absolutely, the end of season awards is as well. People hopefully will be delighted to know that we will be returning to the King Power Stadium for 2025. The date TBC, but we don't rest on our laurels. We want to make it better, and that's thanks to partners, sponsors, and the community. So keep an eye out on the WFA social media, because news regarding the 2025 end of season awards will be released fairly soon.
What's your next one, Ryan?
So I'm going to cheat a little bit for my third highlight of 2024, because I'm going to combine the achievements of 3 players. So 3 players within our community were significant for many reasons. So I'll go through them and you can give me your thoughts. So in chronological order, first of all, in March, John Balding was used in the official kit launch of England's kit. It was a huge achievement seeing John, the England Powerchair football captain, participate alongside players from the men's, women's and other para teams. It was no doubt a fantastic moment for John, but also the Powerchair football community as a whole. being included in such a high-profile event, I think shows how far the sport has come and continues to come in terms of recognition, in terms of representation, and seeing him alongside players such as Harry Kane, Beth Mead, etc., was such a fantastic statement of inclusivity, of how Powerchair football is now being seen as an important part of the wider football family. And for that, we owe so much credit to the Football Association, the work of Phil Heap, Kath Gilby and others who are instrumental in putting Powerchair football alongside the mainstream running games and the men's and the women's teams. So that for me was such a proud moment and a reminder of the progress we're making in raising the profile of Powerchair football on a national level. So that's number one. Number two was in July. We've referenced the John Good Group WFA Cup final at St George's Park as part of the FA Disability Cup weekend. The reason why I've included it as a player highlight is the fact that Greg Baxter was included in the broadcast and commentary team. This is an event we've already highlighted the importance of it within the Powerchair football calendar. People may not know that it's broadcast on TNT Sports to tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people, showcasing disability football at the highest level. So in terms of us as an association of growing and governing Powerchair football, it's probably the most significant platform for raising awareness of our sport, just because of the numbers that it appeals to, and how anyone with TNT Sports can tune in and see Powerchair football at its pinnacle. So for Greg to participate in the commentary team was such a moving moment for me, because it's a testament to his dedication to this sport. People may not know, they may know, his commitment extends beyond just the commentary of the matches. He continuously seeks ways to enhance his own commentary and deepen his understanding of the game. I think it's fairly widely acknowledged and considered that he is the best commentator we have at our disposal. He has this amazing ability to engage audiences and articulate the excitement of the sport whilst weaving in elements of humour and viewer engagement, all of which have contributed to the sport's visibility. So to see him earn that opportunity, and I have to emphasise the word earn, he has put so much time, effort, energy and his own money into honing his craft and his trade, and it obviously stems from his university and masters in global sports journalism. And it was just an amazing celebration. Not only did we get to witness the Powerchair football final at St George's Park, broadcast to tens and hundreds of thousands, we had one of our own talking through it and relaying the excitement to people watching across the world. So that is my second player highlight. And thirdly, and most recently in December, Chris Gordon receiving a much deserved induction into the Albion Foundation Hall of Fame. A significant moment for Chris, but also a highlight for all of us that admire what he's done and his contributions to Powerchair football. Contributions that go beyond his achievements on the court, such as his 5 Premiership titles, his 2 WFA Cups, 200 plus career goals. He is such an influential figure away from the court, and he's dedicated his life to coaching and developing players across the country, across the world. So for me, the induction was a really fitting recognition of his wide-reaching impact, his commitment to the sport, and one of my favourite moments of 2024.
You've definitely
Am I allowed that?
You've definitely allowed it, because I've set the tone there, haven't I, of my artistic licence, but I like what you've done there. So I mean, just a few notes on the the three gentlemen that you mentioned, which I think are absolutely the right thing for me to do as well, and I'd like to do this. So, I mean, John Boulding, first and foremost. So John is a trustee, for those that don't know it, of the WFA, but I would suggest that he's also a wonderful ambassador for the WFA. So the way that John represents us, he would always take the time to want to talk about Powerchair football and the achievements, and trying again to foster more people to come towards the sport. He's always been very, very big at this, and he's unrelenting in some of his own dreams around what he wants to see, where he wants to see Powerchair football be in a few years' time. He's wonderful at doing that stuff, and he always takes the opportunity to do that. So given that platform, I think the FA therefore deserve an awful lot of credit for that. So it's that it registers this stuff, right? So I remember that going out from a social perspective, Ryan, and people noticing that is a very, very noticeable change from the FA to have that inclusive element that ran across all of the forms of football. Brilliant for John from a personal basis, but wonderful for the sport of Powerchair football and the other para football disciplines as well. Just a nod towards the FA. I mean, that's not a token gesture, right? It was never going to be a token gesture. We're now seeing this in the newly launched strategy from the FA for 24 to 28. And what sits underneath that is a disability strategy specifically for the same period of time for 2024 to 2028. It's all over that document around how seriously and how important they view para-football disciplines, what opportunities they enable, and also their responsibilities alongside that. And that's music to our ears, isn't it? Because ultimately we are a partner of the full FA, entrusted to run that version of para-football. And it's really, really important that we start to see them once again going with even more energy and more focus around what they can do to enable people to play all of the para-football disciplines, and from our perspective, to get more people playing Powerchair football. Absolutely brilliant to see the plans that they've put in place for the next 4 years. But, you know, back to John. John will continue to be a wonderful ambassador of the sport, representing the sport at so many levels. With Greg, I mean, what else can I say about that, really? Greg, I think he really likes commentating with me, Ryan. So his humour tends to come to the fore when he does that. But he's a star, isn't he? And I love what you said, because I think that's a really important thing, just to reiterate. He is a student of what he wants to do. And therefore, he tries to find a way to master what it is that he wants to do. That's an important quality for anybody here that's tuning into this podcast. You know, find something you're really, really good at, and then perfect it, become a student of it to get yourself to mastery. And Greg, I think Greg's always he's quite appropriately critical of his performance, which is, funnily enough, the bit that makes him so good. He doesn't sit and rest with his performance level. So I can imagine Greg listening back to his commentaries again and again and again, not from a self-serving perspective, but because he wants to improve and get even better. When I went home and rewatched that final, so therefore we heard and saw what was seen by the masses that were tuning into TNT Sports, his commentary was exceptional, absolutely first class. And he must have been nervous going into it, or had that adrenaline, but he seemed to park that and seemed this wonderful, insightful, composed figure that was just adding so much value to the audience watching that sport. And we know, no genius points for this, but from the first moment I kind of stepped in and realised that we were streaming games and there was an opportunity to have commentary on them, singly, they were very, very specific things that we needed to make sure that we just keep progressing and progressing and progressing. So if I go away from Greg for a minute and start to talk about all the hard work you, once again, Ryan, have put into the commentary team, in putting them in place for the National League, across the Championship and the Premiership, how cool is that? There are no better people to talk about our sport. If I just take you to one side, because your commentary skills are wonderful, you're being very nice in terms of Greg, but your performance in terms of commentary is something that's a huge gift for you from a personal perspective as well. But there are no better people really to commentate on the sport than people that are playing it or have played it. You know, they bring an insight that I would never get to. So I'm glad to play my role occasionally of supporting the commentary team. But the fact that people are stepping into that, brilliant. And maybe that, that's because of people like Greg who have given people an understanding that if you really go for something like this alongside, even if you're still playing the game, there's an opportunity for you to progress into that area as well. What do we call it on a strategy? More than just football. Even with players, we want them to start thinking about what else can they give to the sport and what else can they learn about themselves and learn skills from. And I think that's one of those predominant areas. So well played, Greg. And with Chris, what a thing to witness that is. Chris has given and will continue to give so much to this sport. He's involved in so many facets of the sport as well. From the point of even helping people with getting hold of chairs, new chairs for this season. I saw countless posts around doing that and getting those to the right configuration so it enables people to play the sport at the elite level that we're playing it, to his role within the England setup as well, which has happened now for a number of years, to being a catalyst to the success that sits behind West Brom as a team domestically as well. Goodness me, is there anything that Chris doesn't know or hasn't experienced in the game of Powerchair football? He's just a font of knowledge. And we had him, didn't we, doing some commentary, funny enough, Ryan, on the last weekend. Again, his insights, they're just incredible. They're just wonderful, wonderful insights. So, no, I think to see Chris have an accolade like that, how well-deserved is that? We saw it from other foundations, didn't we? Newcastle, again, shouting about the para-disciplines. I saw that on a few posts that were happening towards the back end of this year as well. So we're starting to see these things happen. But for Chris personally to be inducted and recognised in that way by West Bromwich Albion Foundation, that's just absolutely fantastic. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful plaudits and fully deserved.
No, huge congratulations to him. Huge congratulations to everyone involved in the commentary as well. We've got this amazing product now, which is the National League, which is the WFA Cup competition, and the demand for commentary is so great that we have to put a lot of organisation in it. But we're seeing the quality of the commentary now across our streams, which in turn enhances the sport's visibility and the professionalism around it, and that will be such a huge stepping stone to creating bigger and better experiences going forward. And I take a lot of pride in the commentary side of things, because I know how meaningful it is. I know how much of a difference it makes to the live matches, and we've set the expectation now of the last 2 or 3 National League weekends. We're at 95% commentary. We are not going to dip below that now. That is a fairly firm commitment from us as an association, because we know how important it is. So as always, if you're interested in contributing to our commentary efforts, don't hesitate to get in touch with either myself or Alex Dowding, and we will endeavour to ensure you're given the opportunity, because as Dean mentioned, this is something I hope Greg can serve as the blueprint for others. Maybe if you're looking to access further education in something such as marketing, into journalism, something sports related, because now he has these incredible life experiences which will in turn help him with his employability. Greg was present at the 2023 Fit for Powerchair Football World Cup, where he volunteered his time, effort, energy and money, and he's done so for many international tournaments as well. But this is something, as I said earlier, that he's earned and put so much time into, that this is just the fruit of his labours. So yeah, really exciting times ahead, and something we're very eager to improve and expand upon. So our penultimate picks now.
Number 4.
Number 4. What is your 4th key highlight of 2024?
You're allowed to laugh at this, Ryan, purely because my artistic license is being really pushed here. So I'm going to give this a title of Introducing Others to the Game, which means I've now got that license to talk about so many people that have been guests as we've gone through 2024 and have been absolutely inspired and touched by the game, but also recognise, and I'm very big on this as you know, recognise the game for what it is, which is elite athletes playing this sport. But actually the process of introducing people to the game, I've got very used to doing. So you'll know this because when I'm there, whether that's a championship or premiership weekend, which I'm there most of the time, I use those as opportunities, very clear opportunities to bring people towards the game. And you'll notice that they don't just turn up in the arenas that we play at. I go and meet them in the car park and walk them over and get a feel for their expectations on what they would like to see, but also give them a bit of a potted history around the association in terms of what we do, the structure and those kind of things. And then my process is always the same. I stand up on the higher elevated area where we view the matches that are going on to get them to see the game at a certain level. And then I escort them to the playing area so they get a very different viewpoint of the game as well. But the reason I've picked this as one of my picks is because it's one of the things that I love to do. So therefore it is a very clear highlight. It clearly helps us grow as a sport because we'll talk about some of those individuals in particular, but it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to share the sport with people. And I kind of like it when somebody says, I've never heard of it. What is it? So we're starting right from scratch. Don't forget, if I go right the way back to the first time you introduced me to it, which was part of me going for the process of, is this something I would like to go for in terms of, do I feel that I can add some leadership skill and direction to the association and go for the chairperson's role? Probably talking about, what was that, maybe May time of 2023. My comment to you was exactly the same as what I've just said. I've never heard of this as a sport before. So I quite like the fact that I'm now in that position where I can start talking people through, well, let's introduce you to the sport and see what you think. And we know because of the quality of the people that we have involved in the sport and our community, they make everyone feel so welcome and people love the experience. But above all else, they recognise the game of football and it's compelling to watch, which is just beautiful, isn't it? So it's not that hard to do, but it is definitely one of my highlights. In fairness, if we did this on repeat for 2025, I'm pretty sure I'll end up in the same position to say it's still one of my highlights to do it. So let's give some examples of that. So we've been joined, not everyone will know this because it's not something to over promote for no other reason than, there's a journey. That's a really strange expression to use in some contexts, but there's a journey on this in terms of we get people introduced to the sport and then we start to develop that relationship with them. So some of this will be early stage stuff, but there's a number of charities that we have introduced the sport and I've hosted in terms of those championships, premiership weekends. We've had representatives from UA92 that have been there firsthand. So clearly we have a very thriving partnership with those guys in terms of they're helping us with some of the technical aspects in terms of research of the sport, but also I get a chance to go and lecture. I can't believe I'm saying that, me lecturing the students on disability sport, football and Powerchair football specifically. Love those kind of moments, but to host them in those environments, just brilliant thing to do. To John Good Group, we've spoken so much about those guys in terms of the glowing reports that we mentioned around how they've engaged with the sport, to other organisations that we're partnering with. And then we've got people like Iffy. Iffy Anori introduces our first ambassador, and he was there at the most recent Premiership weekend. So on game week 2, we even got him with a headset on as part of our commentary team. I'm not sure he's going to be a stable part of our team, but he was delighted to do it alongside Charlie. What a game he picked, by the way, with Teesside and Aspire to commentate on that game. But that was Iffy's first experience of seeing the sport live, just absolutely blown away. And again, back to why I've picked it as a highlight, to sit down and get a professional footballer, an ex-coach of England 21s, to witness the sport, a version of football that he's never seen before, and again start to see the way that he was engaging with it early stages. Fantastic. And Iffy in his role with the Premier League, that's wonderful that he's seen it and is now going to be an ambassador and an advocate for what we're doing around Powerchair football and what we do in the WFA. That's a brilliant thing, right? But then the other one that springs to mind was the championship event that happened before that Premiership event that I've just alluded to when Iffy was with us, and we had Carol and Stuart Pearce as guests, which was just amazing, wasn't it? So to again have been a part of hosting both of those, predominantly Carol for her brilliant authoring of the book Joe Jr. and the Wheels of Steel, and that's what that was about. For her to be accompanied by absolute legend, Nottingham Forest and England legend Stuart Pearce, that was just an extraordinary thing to do. And again, I think you mentioned it so many times, and I heard a podcast when you and Al were talking about this in a review of the championship, and I think you were both blown away and surprised by the willingness from both Carol and Stuart to literally understand so much about the game. Their questions, they weren't surface questions. They weren't what I call superficial questions. They were very specific, drilled questions around wanting to understand anything from who can play the sport, to the rules involved in it, to the technical specifications around the chairs. And then when I did my process of taking them down to the actual court side, pitch side to see the game at that level, look what happened. I mean, just once again, our community, there won't ever be a time when I have to say to the community, can you give people a better welcome? They always welcome people brilliantly. If he was just waxing lyrical about the way that he was inducted into the sport, but also what the love and the respect the community showed towards him, players hovering around, wanting to make themselves known to him, want to talk to him about football and his experiences and all that kind of stuff. But with Carol and Stuart, we struggled a little bit, didn't we, to get the games back on because everybody wanted, and you can understand why, can't you, that kind of connection in that involvement with them. But it's one of those things which I look at, and it's a highlight for all of the reasons I've already stated, that it's a pleasure to introduce people to Powerchair football. And when we do it, I can't imagine anyone walking away going, well, I wasn't really captured by that. It's so compelling. It was enough for me to accept it as yet another voluntary role to go and take some leadership responsibility on. But that's how it gets you. And all of our guests and everyone that we welcome into the sport will be exactly the same. It's definitely one of my highlights.
Well, it goes back to your first highlight in terms of the medium-term strategy. And one of the goals for 26-27 will be to ensure that the WFA has a number of ambassadors and influencers that can help spread and share our message of inclusive opportunities. The three that you've mentioned there was so... I said it on the podcast when we was referencing Stuart and Carol Pearce's presence at the championship weekend. It was transformative. And even at the most recent Regional Emergent Talent Programme where I was on Sunday just gone, it was the first time I've seen some of them players and parents since that championship weekend, and it was the first thing they spoke about. Carol and Stuart Pearce had time for anyone that wanted a picture, wanted to ask a question, and you saw what it meant to the teams, to the players. I obviously said on my recap of game week 2 of the championship how much of an impact it had on Nottingham Forest specifically. Obviously, Stuart Pearce so synonymous with that club, and they secured a historic win in his presence, and I don't think that's a coincidence. So you're seeing such beautiful moments come to fruition that I'm really looking forward to 2025 and ultimately introducing new people to the sport. You don't need to be a celebrity or a person in the public spotlight to come and understand what our sport is about. And we often say, well, I certainly have a process when introducing new people to the sport because, like you, I get a bit of a buzz when people say they don't know what Powerchair football is or what it's about, and I say you need to do 3 things, just 3 things, and I challenge you then to not want to follow up that interest. Research Powerchair football, look at pictures, look at videos, look at our streams online. You can do it anywhere at any time. Go onto YouTube, type in the WFA and watch a recent game or Elliot Tinkler's documentary. And then if you want to follow that up, come to an event in person. Come and see what it's about. Come and get a feel for the venue, come and meet the players, the parents, hear the noises and the camaraderie around the results and the matchups. And then thirdly, try it out. We can facilitate you getting into a chair to see what it's about firsthand. And that third one, most specifically, has, I think, the greatest impact, because I don't think you quite understand how skillful these players are if you're just watching them across a stream. These chairs, when they're tuned to competition regulation levels, are so twitchy, so hard to control, but the players make it look so easy. So if you watch it, you come in person and you try it, I can guarantee you'll want to follow up that interest in one way or another.
Certainly got me, Ryan.
It certainly did.
Right, what's your penultimate pick?
My penultimate pick was Adam McAvoy's appointment as the England Powerchair head coach. So having worked closely with Adam for over 6 years now, I think I've witnessed firsthand, more than others, his unwavering dedication to the sport and the profound impact on the players that he coaches. He will be the first one to deflect any appreciation or praise onto others, but I think it's really important to highlight the role he plays within Powerchair football, a journey that has been comprehensive from top to bottom. He's held various roles with the WFA over the last 10, 12, 15 years. From his time coaching at Sevenoaks to the critical role he's played in the England Para-Talent pathway. So this includes his work creating the Regional Emergent Talent Programme, or RETP if I abbreviate, the National Emergent Talent Programme, or NETP, and most recently the England Development Squad. So, and having worked with him for so long, I know his approach to this appointment as the England head coach will be to ensure that there is now a cohesive progression across all levels, from newcomers in the Regional Emergent Talent Programme to seasoned England internationals in the senior team. So I think he'll want to ensure that the skills and strategies and techniques at each level align with that development pathway for players at every stage, and I think that's really important, and he is the perfect person for that job. He's got that role of merit, he's earned it, and he's dedicated his life to this sport, so it was a really proud moment working alongside him so closely to see him appointed as the England head coach. And as he's also the national development manager of the Wheelchair Football Association as well, so he has been key to the development of the wider powerchair football, the player programs, the quality of the sport for well over 10 years now. So his understanding of the talent landscape across the country is probably unmatched. So I'm really happy for that appointment. And looking ahead, it's a really packed schedule for 2025, from friendly fixtures to the 2025 EPFA Nations Cup in Italy, where England, of course, will be defending their title. Adam will have a very challenging task to selecting the best squad because, as we've already mentioned, the RETP, the NETP, the England Development Squad are packed and filled to the brim with so much talent. And that comes from the grassroots level. So I hope people can see how this all joins up and how this steady flow of top quality players and where it stems from.
I'd echo everything you said about Adam. I mean, I used the word with John Boulding a little bit earlier, Ryan, on another one of your picks. But the ambassadorial qualities of Adam are huge, aren't they? Because of everything he gets involved in. And he still continues to do that despite taking the England head coach role. When I joined, I would completely expect there to have been some nervousness around an outsider coming into the sport. in that position? What does he know about Powerchair football? The simple answer to that is I've answered a few moments ago. I didn't know anything at all. But it was never going to be a problem. And it was never going to be a problem because of the quality of people that sat around me and the knowledge and the insight and the experience they have towards Powerchair football. So unless somebody comes into a leadership position like mine and ignores all of that insight and that experience and that advice that they're given, it's not going to go wrong, is it? Because ultimately you've got brilliant people that are around you. Ryan, you are one of those individuals. Adam is certainly another one of those individuals as well. The depth of experience and knowledge is something I feel very grateful to have around me, and has aided my process of understanding the sport. Because if you are coming from a ground zero point where you're not understanding what's happening and what the sport is about, you want to get to where you need to get to really quickly. And there's no question that Adam and yourself quite often with me have talked about hopefully we've inducted Dean into the sport really well. This is my opportunity to say you've done more than really well. You did a great job because you've enabled me to just pick it up at pace and then follow in intensity and get to things that maybe if you guys weren't around, I wouldn't have been able to get to in as quick a time, if that makes sense. So I think Adam, 100%, there is no questioning his experience and knowledge across the game at so many levels. And actually, I'll go a stage further than that. What a role he played in the Disability Cup, live on TNT Sports. Again, his insight when they were cutting from the game commentary that Greg, as we've touched on already, did beautifully well, when they cut to Adam and just got him to give his narrative and his insight on what was happening and what was going on and perhaps what should be done next and what things they'll be looking for. I mean, honestly, that just added, again, so much quality to the broadcast, didn't it, as well? So, no, I completely understand why you've given that Adam as a pick on that one. And my goodness me, to echo what you've just said, what a job he's got. I mean, it's an embarrassment of riches, isn't it? To some extent, but actually let me be very clear on that makes the job very difficult because, you know, he's going to have to disappoint people. He's going to have to work out what he really wants to go with in terms of that squad, particularly when, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but for the EPFA Nations Cup, probably the squad size is 8 people. And just narrowing down to 8 from the quality that we have is a very, very difficult thing to do. But of course, he's in that position for a reason, so we wish him the best of luck at doing that. But what a great pick. Yeah, full credit to Adam for his appointment and the role that he plays within the development of the sport. We will be eagerly awaiting the EPFA Nations Cup in Italy, where we will of course be cheering England on to secure a second successive European Championship. September, that one, so we look forward to that. Your fifth and final pick, Mr. Williams. Yeah, so it's not far removed from the discussion we've just been having, actually. So I would say it sounds like a very broad thing to say, but it's the quality. It's the quality of what we're seeing this season. So 2 game weeks in across the Optegra Championship and Premiership leagues for this year. I mean, my goodness me, the quality. I feel a bit guilty saying this because it could seem to suggest that the previous season didn't have that quality. And what the previous season had so much quality around the leagues, very competitive, but the level of competition and the level of push and the intensity of the game that's happening this season, 24-25, I think is so obvious for everybody to see. Now, whether that is aligned to things like there being the EPFA Nations Cup at the end of the season and everything that goes with that, maybe that's in the psyche of the players, right, and the coaches. But I have to say, and let me specifically single them out, the quality of coaching and the quality of management to go alongside the performance of the players, it just seems to have gone up another level. So I think watching that sport now, I've noticed that. And there are some games that I can reference already this season that have taken my breath away a little bit. And I think it was again, you will know this from the studious work that you do on the commentary side of it, but if I'm involved with escorting guests around and introducing people to the sport, I sadly can't watch every game. But there are moments that take my breath away in Powerchair football, and it's happened a lot across 2 game weeks for both the Championship and Premiership already. And I'm going to pull out 3 games for you where my breath has been taken away and I've just stopped and actually stopped talking to guests, almost at a point of saying, no, stop for a minute. I need to not talk. I need to focus on what's going on here, because it's just been that noticeable. And again, please do correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Statistician, but Teesside West Brom was a game that I think since we've put that across social media, that was a game that I watched, and I think that must have been Premiership game week 1. I mean, it stopped me in my tracks. The quality of the football that was on show from both teams, and there's a winner and a loser in that game. Was it 4-2 in the end to West Brom from memory? But honestly, that game, I just stood and was just very still, watching a quality game of football from elite athletes that I think had stepped up from the previous season. Extraordinary quality to watch in terms of that performance level. If I go to the Championship, this would have been game week 1. I had the pleasure of commentating on this, and it was such a tight game, but the drama attached to it, Man City, Nottingham Forest. And at a last second, I mean, it must have been injury time, a goal scored by Man City to win that game and take the points. My goodness, struggling, when you're commentating, the last thing you want to be doing is struggling for words and not being able to speak. But again, it was one of those moments that took breath away. The step up of a team like Man City that we've talked often, I've heard you talk on previous podcasts, and you're right to acknowledge this, the average age of that team, that squad, it's extraordinary to then see what I saw last season and then some of the growth, and that's credit to coaches, but it's credit to the players who have stepped up and are in that kind of learning zone. And the last game I want to reference is another Premiership game, and it's that last game, and it's the one that Iffy commentated on when he didn't know he was coming to commentate at all with Charlie. Teesside versus Aspire. Now, Aspire will be disappointed on the wrong end of, I think, a 3-0 defeat. But Teesside's football in that first half, and again, since I've seen people talking about some of the skill shown, and particularly by Ed Common on the double touch. I sound like I know what I'm talking about now, don't I? Briefly. But the double touch to then pass the ball, I think it must have been for Tinkler to score. That was just extraordinary. And for someone that's not played the game, I can recognise quality and skill just beyond disbelief watching that moment. But that whole game, in terms of the quality of football, and Aspire, wrong end of the result, but playing their part in that as well. You referenced it right at the start of this podcast about the push that people seem to be giving each other. Amazing. The last thing I'll focus on around that, the whole title of this last pick from me was about the quality of football that we're seeing, is just a wonderful story that you've referenced a few times now, that can people see, and I hope people can see how grassroots links into the elite game. Well, we've seen that, haven't we? And we now have stats on that as well. So I think we're struggling to work this out exactly, but let me use the word circa in front of this. 11, 12 players have made their debut going from regional leagues into the National League this season, whether that's Championship or Premiership. And my goodness me, some of the performance level from those individuals going into such an intense level of competitive football, they have not looked out of place, right? And that I get excited about, because I think about the immediacy of that, and then I think about future tournaments in terms of the elite game for England. And my goodness me, it's going to become even more difficult to whoever the coaches at the time to start to sift their way through that. Some of those people are very young players, male, female players. That's brilliant for our sport. Absolutely brilliant, and makes me incredibly excited. And don't forget, at the end of the day, I have a responsibility with trustees to govern and grow the sport. But we're football fans, right? And we love the sport. And that gets me very excited about the future of this sport, just the quality of the players that we're inducting into it. So I think that's a lovely place for me to leave it, and I'm really pleased with that last pick. And a pat on the back for myself, because it's easy for people to see it, but rightly, I think we should, certainly from my perspective, we should end with the quality of the players and the performances that we're seeing right now.
I couldn't agree more. The level of Powerchair football we're seeing this season, is remarkable. The skill, the strategy, the teamwork have seemed to reach new heights, and every match seems to push the boundaries even further. You spoke about the debutants competing in the National League for the first time. I would be amiss to not reference the fact that stat in particular, we have to give some credit to the regional leagues, and one of my honourable mentions I'll weave in now happened, I think, on the 6th of January 2024, so right at the start of the year. We kicked off with some fantastic news, and for the first time ever, every regional league alongside the WFA National League achieved England football accreditation. So this accreditation is a testament to how well run our leagues are, the high quality of competitions they provide, and the safe and respectful environments they maintain. So it was a very proud moment for English Powerchair football. It ties in with our medium-term strategy in terms of the rigorous standards that each of our leagues adheres to in terms of safeguarding and safety and quality of football. So quick congratulations to the committees of each of them regional leagues. So South East, South West, East Midlands, West Midlands, North East and North West, and their member clubs for the hard work and dedication to raising the stature of powerchair football within the country. It's the opportunities that they're providing which allows these players to climb the ladder and test their ability at the highest level, being our flagship National League, the Premiership and Championship. We have record-breaking numbers in terms of National League debutants. So full credit to them, but going back to the surge in quality and the competitiveness, it is a reflection of the hard work of everyone involved, from players and coaches to the support staff. And I think it is a result of potentially these international tournaments coming up. But the beauty of it is, last year it was leading up to the EPFA Champions Cup. This season it's weaving into the EPFA Nations Cup, and then the following year it's the Fit for Powerchair Football World Cup in Buenos Aires. So all of our National League seasons will trickle into international tournaments, for which there will be several players looking to force their way into the narrative and Adam McAvoy's squad. So hopefully this is a continuing trend for the remaining game weeks of the 24-25 season, but also beyond that.
Yeah, love that. Here to all of that as well. Let's keep it coming. New standards being set all the time, which I love. What's your last pick, Rye?
So my last pick has to be the launch of the WFA ScoreLine app, a huge landmark for the WFA, launching the WFA ScoreLine app, for which I have to give a huge amount of credit to Jack Humphreys. He serves as the National League Secretary of the Wheelchair Football Association, so holds a role within the leadership team. And what he has achieved through the conceptualization all the way to the rollout of this app has been remarkable. For those that don't know, WFA ScoreLine app offers real-time updates on scores, on leagues, on player stats, and it's a tool that completely revolutionises the experience for fans and players alike. It's this central hub for tracking the progress of teams and individuals, and anyone that was present during game week 2 of the Premiership would have known and would have downloaded it. They would have tried it firsthand. Anyone that hasn't, I encourage you to do so via your respective app store, WFA ScoreLine, and you will see the hard work and the thousands of hours that have been dedicated to creating a application that completely transforms the visibility of our sport. And it's so exciting to know personally, working behind the scenes, that this is just the start of the journey. There is so many exciting ideas and innovations that Jack and Alex Dowding want to implement going forward. So if you're impressed with what you see already, just you wait to see what is achieved in 2025. I think you mentioned it about introducing new players, new individuals to the sport, and how it will probably be one of your highlights for 2025 if we do this podcast then. I suspect that one of my highlights will be the WFA ScoreLine app and the innovations that stem from it. So full credit to Jack, Alex and the others that have poured time, effort, energy into bringing this project to life, and it's very exciting times ahead.
What a lovely last pick, right? Which I suspect I knew you were going to say that, and it would have been on my long list. There's no question about that. I call Jack Wizard. I think that's a very appropriate title for Jack. I mean, the stuff that I think he's just graduated with first. He just absolutely awesome in terms of his knowledge around having the vision to see these things and then putting it together and constructing it. It's just an incredible quality. And I'll just say that again. What a wizard to have put that together. I'm very, very fortunate to have somebody that's got that skill set and that quality and that association and love with the game, where he can put his mind to that, and countless hours that would have taken to get that in the state that it's in. And like what you've just said, I've heard Jack immediately talk about several further iterations of this and developments that go alongside the app, which is amazing. I know you've just mentioned him as well, but I'm not allowing Alex Dowding to wriggle out of this too much. He's very quick to say it's Jack, and it absolutely is Jack in terms of the plaudits of this, but I'm just going to mention that there's a mentoring quality about Alex Dowding for lots of different things, and I've seen him and Jack, at times they are thick as thieves, and I love the relationship that they have on a personal note. But the reality of those two is that they're very closely working together on all of the technical aspects that you see that come into the sport around things like streaming and some of the innovations around where they want to take that. And there's a quality that Alex has where he brings his expertise and upskills Jack, and then a bit vice versa as well. So Alex Dowding, you are not wriggling out of this. You are getting more than an honourable mention to say thank you for mentoring and adding that support to Jack on what is just an incredibly immense piece of work. So I use the sentiment of game changer. That's what this app is. I've already taken the opportunity to spread that far and wide to lots of partners that we have, external partners right across the FA, and receive some extraordinarily glowing feedback about what it does and what it offers, and probably even give somebody the appetite to think, if we had other things associated, not necessarily on our app, but if other people were doing this, then it would make a lot of difference to other versions of the game and the sport as well. To business people that I'm always talking to, some of my clients, some of my wider business network, to talk to about Powerchair Football, to start to get them engaged with it. And this cuts through a lot of it, right? When you have to start the explanation, and I love what you said earlier, right, about there are 3 things that you ask people to do, and it ends with come and watch the sport and experience it for yourself live. But actually, this will fast track that process. No substitute for watching it live, of course there isn't, but actually getting into the detail of what is it, what's the National League structure, what teams play in it, the stats, the quality of that information, the articles that are put on it as well. Absolutely fantastic. This is a game-changing moment for the WFA. We'd be foolish not to capitalise on this brilliant hard work and innovation that's gone into it. We will not be guilty of that at all. And this is one of the first pieces of work that I will now put in front of people and share with people to get them to understand about Powerchair Football. That's how significant this is. So well done, Jack.
Absolutely. So I think that serves as a perfect recap for 2024. We now have the almost impossible task of bettering those achievements in 2025, but being the 20th anniversary of the Powerchair Football Association, and behind the scenes knowing what we have planned for the calendar year ahead, I think we may do it.
Impossible is nothing, Ryan.
Absolutely. But anyway, thank you to all that have tuned in, to myself and Dean, for this episode of the 2-on-1 Powerchair Football Podcast, powered by MK Battery. We will be back soon with another episode. See you all soon.
Happy New Year.